Okay, guys, we're in. Hope you guys are ready. Good morning, everybody, as we get our session started. It's good to see a lot of you already on time, jumping into our sessions. So a very good morning, and I'd like to welcome you all to this Case for the Clouds webinar that we are kicking off today. You probably would see the title coming up on my screen now. It's the AWS presents the 2021 Case for Cloud, everything you need to know when considering AWS cloud migration. So really excited to be here with you all. You can see the numbers are building up nicely in the back end. My guests are nice and ready for you. As you come in, please select, let us know your name first. Let us know your name and perhaps even where your company or which city or town where you are, you're safe, all is well. Tell us your name in the chat as you come in, and just do that. Please also select all panelists and attendees on the drop down so we can all interact with your welcome message and yes, your questions in the future. And there you go. Georgina has graciously done that for us. Georgina is our editor-in-chief at CFO South Africa. Please take her cues very seriously, all panelists and attendees, so we can interact indeed with your conversation or any questions that you may have for us today. I'm in a very cold Pretoria, but looking forward. I've warmed up and gotten myself nice and ready for this session. And I hope that it's warm-ish, I'm told, in Johannesburg. So good numbers already. So welcome once again. My name is Brian, and I'm from CFO South Africa. We've hit some decent numbers for our session, and as you can see, it's AWS, the case for cloud in 2021, and everything you need to know for cloud migration. And this is actually a two-part webinar series. So, you know, there's a lot of information that we couldn't pack into one session. So we thought we'll make it a two-part. So this is a two-part session. We're starting with this session, and the next one will be next month, around about the 19th of July or so. You will get invitation for part 2 of that. And the team will take you through of what happens after we've done part 1. So really looking forward to have a lot of you. So if you're hoping to attend the AWS Case for Cloud today, you're definitely at the right webinar. As you can see up front, I've got my guests nice and ready. Unfortunately, Clive had to attend to an emergency, so couldn't be with us today. I'll let you know in a sec. He's been aptly replaced by just as capable individual from AWS, who I'll let you know shortly. So I think we've perhaps reached a good quorum for us to attend. We're just slowly approaching just 4 past 11, the top of the hour for me, which is 11. And I can see some people in different parts of the country as well. So I am going to get the screen off so I can stop sharing quickly, so I can make a quick introduction of who I have today. I'm really excited that I've got some absolute pros that have joined me for this session. But once again, my name is Brian from CFO South Africa, and welcome to the Case for Cloud, brought to you by MFT and AWS. MFT gets you ready for cloud platforms, preparing your journey into the cloud through diagnostic assessments and compliance services, while AWS provides over 1,000 cloud computing services, which is also known as IaaS, infrastructure as a service, that allow you to set up dynamic, scalable, automated computing environments, whether you're migrating to AWS to reduce costs, improve resource utilization, or benefit from new infrastructure and capabilities that are available to on-premise. Migration is a non-trivial effort. So there's a lot of tech stuff happening there, so you're definitely in for a treat today. I've already said, please, if you want to interact with us, select all attendees and panelists. Today, we'll delve into the Case for Cloud. And for that, I'm fortunate enough to be joined by three absolute experts in this space. Avin is the director of MFT. Avin, you want to say good morning?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And I also have Jabu Sibanyoni, who is the senior solutions architect at AWS. Jabu.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here too.
Thank you, Jabu, with a big smile. We'll look at agility and innovation that a cloud operating model delivers, and the associated technology costs and how to consider your return on investments. I also have Wesley Lynch, is the CEO of Snapplify. Wes?
Morning, guys. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Wes will provide insights into his AWS journey and growth of his business off the back of AWS. So we'll get a very, very good case there. So we just gone 5 past, and I would like to call upon Avin as to help him get ready. But before, Avin's going to present something, but before he does that, I wanted to get a quick sense of what type of audience we have here. So for that, I'm going to run a quick poll just to kind of sense check, who we are, what type of audience we have on show today. You'll probably see it come on, and if you can, start answering the questions, really quick and simple questions to get us warmed up for the session, just to see the tech, separate the tech heads from the finance folk. Let's see. A few questions. If you can, please start answering the questions. The first one, have you attended cloud-related polls before? Or rather, it should have been a webinars, I believe, cloud-related webinars before. Just tell us yes or no. And the second one is, in the last 2 years, have you noticed an increase in IT costs without an increase in business profit? Let us know your thoughts on that question. There is a third. I see you are racing through that. Thank you very much. Is IT security an issue that your board, leadership, and even your management is increasingly concerned with? Let us know your thoughts. There's a lot of yeses, a lot of yeses coming through. The fourth question, do you feel that your current IT environment does not meet your performance expectations? So that's where we are with the questions. I can see quite a lot of people. We're closely reaching. If we can hit 80% response, I will move on to the next rate. So thank you for responding. Guys, my panelists, as you can see, we've got, have you attended cloud-related webinars before? At least 60% of us have. On the second question, very high return there in the last 2 years. A lot of people are saying they've increased IT costs, about 83%. And on the third question, also sitting close to 80% there, is IT security an issue for their board or their leadership and perhaps even their management teams? And the last question, also well into the early 80s there, do you feel that the current IT environment does not meet your expectations? Right? So there's a lot of fear of security there, guys. Do you feel your IT environment does not meet your performance expectations? So I think that's the 84% on that fourth question. Okay, but interestingly, we are quite, we are 58-42% on question one. So not a lot of people have attended a lot of these. So perhaps, Avin, we need to do a few more of these later. Well, you'll be pleased to know that there's part 2 of at least this one that's coming up, Avin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks there, Brian. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I'm looking at the numbers here on the polls, and it's quite indicative of that we've got the right group attending today. Probably roughly 50-60% have been on a cloud webinar before. But the insight really comes in question 2, 3, and 4, where we're seeing that a lot of guys noticed an increase in IT costs without an increase in benefit. So we've got more costs, less benefit, right? The third question says that security is really a big focus for management, senior management boards, executive level. And the fourth one ties in with number 2, where we're seeing that our current IT environment doesn't really meet our performance expectations, which means, in my view, that we've got the right audience and we're pitching the right subject and we're talking about the right things here. It's of interest to the CFO SA leadership and membership as well. So thanks for that, Brian.
Awesome, awesome. I like that. I think that's got us nicely started. We hit 74% response rate, which is very good. So thank you guys. And with that, I am gonna let Avin share, because I believe you've prepared something for us, Avin. Let you share and let me end the poll quickly. And Avin is ready. The poll has ended at 74%, and there are the results. Thanks for that. And Avin, whenever you're ready, awesome, we can get going.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for the warm introduction there. Hello, everyone. I'm pretty honored to be talking with you today, and I have a very brief presentation I would outline at the 30,000 foot level, really high level, the key concepts that are related to the AWS cloud. And this is really going to help us to frame our panel discussion. I'm going to cover what the cloud is and try and contrast that against what your on-premise environment might look like. And I'll also cover a little bit of cloud security and pricing concepts when you're considering the cloud. I'm going to close off with how to get started with the cloud. Just let me know, Brian, when you can see my screen, right? Just give me a second to try and share. And I'm going to put that up. So this first screen, I think we've already had that. I've covered it very quickly what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what is the cloud. We're going to compare and contrast with AWS cloud and on-prem. We'll look at some of the benefits and how to secure our cloud. We'll touch a little bit on the pricing model and what are the main drivers of cost in AWS. And then we'll look at how do we monitor our cloud resources and look at some of the key takeaways in there. And that's really going to frame the rest of our panel discussion going forward, right? So when we talk about cloud, what really is cloud? And this slide really talks about what an on-premise environment looks like. Most of you guys in the CFO and finance community may have a good idea of what your server room looks like on premises. And in that room that you have is probably with a locked door and whatnot, there's some servers in there, there's a file system for storage, there's a lot of databases and probably a lot of applications. And the cloud is really just that, it's somebody else's sort of server room, but a really large and distributed type of format, right? And your cloud services provider, be it AWS or any one of the other ones, are going to give you the same type of things. They're going to give you servers, they're going to give you databases, they're going to give you storage and applications, and you access that through the internet. And that's one of the sort of prerequisites. You're going to need an internet access. But coupled with all of that are a number of sort of services that AWS offers to really improve your database, your cloud experience. I'm trying to change screen here. There you go. There are three sort of main models that we can take when we start considering cloud. A lot of clients go for private cloud. What does that mean? Well, it means that your company itself hosts its own data center, and only they have access to their cloud environment through the internet, through a distributed type of user base and customer base. The second option is a hybrid option where companies elect to have their own private cloud, but they also then look at a little bit of a few services in the public cloud like AWS. The third option that clients normally go for is a full public cloud, where all your databases and applications and services and whatnot are all hosted in the public cloud like AWS. This slide talks about contrasting a little bit of the cost and constituency of what your on-premise and cloud environment might look like going forward. In your current environment, there's a lot of things going on there. You're looking at equipment maintenance, you're looking at security, you're looking at procuring hardware through capital acquisitions on a periodic, probably 3-5 year basis. There are a lot of personnel costs and training costs, and there are a lot of ongoing costs, like making sure that your environment's up to date and patched and kept secure, and maintaining your databases and applications and whatnot. And there's also a large component, probably 10%, 9-10%, which is your software licensing costs that you're paying on a monthly basis or an annual basis. On the cloud side, a lot of those ancillary costs go away because you're really just paying for what you use. You pay for implementation, that's part of your migration. We'll talk a little bit about that today. We'll talk a lot about training, and your ongoing costs are around the cloud resources that you're consuming. And you really only pay for what you consume in the cloud environment. Your your costs then become your cost base becomes a lot lower, right? When we look at some of the benefits of cloud, and apologies if I'm going through really, really quickly. If there's a question that you need to ask, please just raise your hand and I'll get to that. We've got a lot of content we want to get through today, which is why I'm trying to be as brief as possible. In terms of some of the benefits that we're talking about cloud, one of the main ones is trading our capital expense for operational expense. You guys would know that on a periodic basis, maybe 3 to 5 years, you're shelling out quite a bit of cash to buy servers and provision that services for future demand that you predict probably 3, 5, 8 years in advance, depending on what your sort of life cycle looks like. And with cloud, you're able to translate that from a capital expense to an operational expense because you only pay for what you use. With cloud as well, you stop guessing capacity. That means we're not underestimating or overestimating when we're making those capital purchases. What we're really doing is provisioning and using what we think we're going to be using at that time. So we're much better able to match supply and demand, and we're able to scale on demand. And that sort of flexibility lends a lot to free cash flow in the business, right? Because we're taking away that capital expense and we're using that money that we would have otherwise spent on more profitable endeavors in our business. The other benefit is security. With AWS, we are able to give you a lot more security and built-in security than most companies would be able to do on their own in their own environments. We manage to keep your data safe, help you meet your compliance requirements, we save you money, and we help you scale and quickly and much more securely. Now, some of the terms that we're going to be using today are around regions and availability zones. And a few steps back, we spoke about data centers. In the AWS world, a cluster of data centers is called a region. We have a region here in South Africa, in Cape Town, that we started off probably in April last year. And in our Cape Town region, we have what's known as 3 availability zones. And the availability zone is a separate data center that's probably 60 kilometers away from the other one. And we've got a cluster of 3 data centers in South Africa that make up our South African region. And we've probably got 29 or 30 regions across the globe that we can use to host any number of resources across the globe for your customers. An important part of moving to cloud is to understand the shared responsibility model that any cloud service provider would have presented to you. Here we've got 2 distinct aspects, what you're responsible for as the customer and what AWS is responsible for as the service provider. AWS is really responsible for security of the cloud, whereas the customer is responsible for security in the cloud. That means that AWS is responsible for also all the sort of hardware that goes into maintaining a data center and all the software that the operating systems and the storage and compute that makes that possible. You as the customer are responsible for all the data and authorizations and whatnot that you put into the cloud. Very similar to what you would have when you're using Excel. You're responsible for the data that you put into Excel, a Microsoft Excel product, but Microsoft is responsible then for the actual product itself. Shared responsibility model, quite an important concept to have known in AWS. Right? Obviously, when security becomes an issue, you want to make sure that you are able to understand what sort of threats you have in your environment. And on top of that, we've got AWS services that can help you with that in terms of threat assessment. One of those things is Amazon Inspector, which is an automated service that we use to assess our security position. Right? In terms of our assurance programs, there are a number of certifications that we have in AWS for our hardware and for the sort of the areas that AWS is responsible for. And these are all available to you to assist in your compliance efforts. Right? In terms of pricing, AWS have a pay-as-you-go model, so you only pay for what you use, and you can use your services for any term that you'd like to have. You save more when you reserve for a period of 3 years or 1 year. And the more you use, the more you save. So it's a really robust pay-as-you-go type of model. And you only pay for what you use. In an on-premise environment, you pay for your capital expense upfront and hope that you utilize it over the period of its depreciation. But with AWS, you only pay for what you use. All your consumption is matched to your usage and demand. In terms of the main pricing concepts, we've got compute, storage, and the data that you transfer in and out of the cloud. In terms of the compute, you normally pay per hour or per second, and that varies by instance type. For the storage, you're normally paying per gigabyte, and that's pretty standard, right? In terms of analyzing our costs, we've got Cost Explorer, which is a service for AWS that helps you get started quickly, and it gives you a good view of what your costs are and how you can improve and be more efficient with your costs. How to get started with AWS? Well, we have a very easy free tier where guys can log in and learn how to use AWS for free for a year. There are a number of free services associated with that, and we'll encourage you to get on to aws.com/free to pick up some of those free tier services. Trusted Advisor is another service that we have with AWS that helps you to optimize your environment in terms of the 5 pillars, which I'll talk about in the next slide, around cost optimization, around performance of your environment, how secure your environment is, how fault tolerant it is, and whether we're hitting any service limits on our side. How to start our cloud journey? Normally, clients start off with a very small project to build confidence and to build some skill internally. And from there, we then build onto that with some foundation phase workloads, and then start moving into higher level migrations and making our sort of applications more cloud native. Right? In terms of the 5 pillars, whenever we design and try to migrate anything into AWS, we want to make sure that we are secure, right? We want to make sure that our environments are reliable, that our costs are optimized, that we are optimized for performance, and we make sure that our environments are operationally excellent. Right? Some of the key takeaways for this, and I know I've been through it very quickly, is the pay-as-use model, and we can estimate our monthly consumption using simple monthly calculator. A lot of elements of security are handled by AWS, but our customers are still responsible for taking care of their own data. And how to prepare for our cloud journey, we normally start off with a cloud adoption framework, which we'll talk about in a little bit of the panel discussion, and our migration readiness assessment. Brian, I think that's it from my side on the presentation. We can continue.
Yeah, thanks, Avin. I think that was absolutely useful for us as we set ourselves on this journey for building that case for cloud. For the next bit, I'm going to call on all 3 of you, Avin, who's from MFT, and Jabu from AWS, as well as Wesley Lynch. We probably have a quick discussion just to kind of go through some of the elements that are involved in getting yourself in this journey, perhaps some of the challenges as well. And to our attendees, feel free to post any questions in the chat. I'll pull them up from there. If you can, let me know you're addressing it to. Otherwise, you're welcome to pop in a general question. Just select all panelists and attendees so we can engage with that question. And with that, I'm going to call on Avin. Let me start with you, because you started with a presentation, and you did give us a few elements, but I just wanted, perhaps you can build on. Let's talk about some of the challenges, perhaps, that you're likely to encounter when you're moving to a cloud. And I'm talking here for somebody, it's a novel idea and you want to move to the cloud. What can you anticipate to come to a business?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. That's a pretty good question that often comes up in a discussion with clients. I normally pose the following question when we're talking about challenges, and that is, why are you actually migrating to cloud in the first place? And the reason that I've seen some clients present for migrating are probably as diverse as the clients themselves. For some clients, it can be recent changes in leadership or changes in strategy, or even new compliance requirements that often direct migration to cloud. Some clients are expanding to new countries or new geographical locations or compliance. For example, POPIA or PCI DSS, that often sort of dictate moving to cloud. A growing customer base is also a good reason to move to cloud because of the flexibility and the availability advantages. Technology service outages and security-related issues can also influence that decision to migrate to cloud. Technology debt is also another constraint that clients are experiencing, and you can think of caring for legacy applications on mainframe infrastructure or COBOL-based applications. Some clients still have that. The other major push to cloud comes from constraints in the internal IT organization. I think we saw that from our poll questions there, Brian, with respect to skills and infrastructure that's sometimes required to gain and maintain competitive advantages in the business. When it comes to challenges, Brian, with any project, IT or otherwise, business and senior management buy-in is critical as a necessary requirement, I think. And another challenge to overcome is the impact of staff and customers, along with the adoption resistance in people and processes. Skills and resources for migration is another challenge, and cloud skills, we all know, are in critically short supply globally. Companies must invest in tools and people to migrate successfully, right? And then on the technical side, customers often struggle with the cloud deployment model, hybrid, private cloud, public cloud, what to migrate and by when, how to integrate with other applications, and that's sort of the related type of complexity that goes with that, right? There are other business issues like changes in the organization's security posture, now with POPI coming in, and the financial costs of migration and maintenance of cloud environment. The other concept to consider, Brian, is that migration to cloud is just the start of a new way of working. And companies must also allow for how they will operate in the cloud. So, Brian, there's really no shortage of challenges. And that's what makes life really exciting, I think. And fortunately, though, fortunately for us, the migration process is pretty established at AWS, and we have the tools and frameworks to make that journey really as smooth as possible.
All right. Thanks for that, Wes. I think that, there's definitely no end to challenges. They might be very contextual in some cases. But with that, let me call on Wes. Wesley is CEO of Snapplify, and Wes has already kind of been on this journey. So as we build on, some of the things that Avin says, and Wes, you've already been on the cloud journey. When building a business plan for migrating to the cloud, what elements or perspectives should one consider? I mean, we'd like to hear from what you did as you were getting up onto this journey.
Thanks, yes. Our journey maybe is slightly different, I think, perhaps from corporates that typically have data centers and a lot of legacy. But it talks to one of the points that Avin raised, which was really around a business with a very high growth customer base, or massively increase in usage. So obviously, us perhaps following more of a startup journey, you've got this scenario where a lot of what you build in the beginning is this minimum viable product, and you build in these constraints of your capabilities and your resources, but knowing that your ultimate objective is to scale and grow the business. And that's probably the best use case for cloud. There's this initial investment that you're making, but it's this investment that has a solid foundation ultimately for growth. And that's probably the biggest consideration that we had, was to say, well, we can start out, and obviously we cannot in the very beginning of the journeys go and spend massively on the infrastructure that perhaps we're going to need in 3 or 4 or 5 years. So where some corporates maybe have the luxury of having that capex, we simply didn't. So being able to build something that had longevity and could grow and scale, there was no other choice but to go and look at the cloud. And the big, the biggest thing there is not just the growth, but also the performance. We've gone through so many chapters, even with COVID and us being in the education space, that was a really, unforeseen spike mid-year of utilization. And for us to be able to maintain the performance in all of our systems under, that, unexpected demand spike, AWS really was, invaluable in our ability to scale.
Awesome. I really like those terms. I think this is the language of the new normal, minimum viable product and startup and scale up. But I want to go, Jabu, I know it's cold. I'm going to bring you in. I won't leave you out in the cold. And I just want to, again, build on what Wesley has said. He's coming from a startup environment. So I suppose the question is, who is the cloud for? And perhaps the second part of the question is, should we all consider moving to the cloud as all businesses, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Brian. So who is cloud for? Honestly, if you look at the cloud, cloud is for everyone. Every organization that you can imagine out there, they really stand to benefit from the cloud. I'm happy that we've got a customer who can really attest how they managed to benefit from the startup point of view. But if you look at the customer base that we serve currently, we serve any type of a business. So we are serving government institutions today, not-for-profit organizations, whether you are in the financial sector. So every segment of the business can actually benefit from the cloud. I think Ivan did touch on some of really the benefits of the cloud. One that I would really like to, some of which I would really like to emphasize maybe, it's around the agility. So if you look at the business or if you look at the world today, it does require any organization to really be able to be agile. So if you look at AWS, you are able to spin up resources in hundreds or even in thousands within minutes. So really this allows organizations out there to be able to benefit from being able to be agile, to build applications in a much more faster clip. Some of the benefits that Ivan touched on, it's around the cost. So everyone wants to save cost at the end of the day, right? So if you look at any conversation starter with the cloud, it starts with the cost and it ends with the cost. So we have seen organizations such as your Dow Jones that made an estimate that they will be able to save $100 million by migrating their data center into the cloud. So that is just for the infrastructure cost. So if you look at those benefits, really you can see that any type of organization out there can be able to really benefit from the cloud. Ivan also did touch around our concept of the region, right? So if you are an organization that is going to be growing globally, so if you want to have customers in a global scale, our regions allows you to be able to actually acquire infrastructure within minutes using our global region infrastructure. So if you think about all those reasons that I've just mentioned now, any organization really can benefit from the cloud.
All right, thanks for that. And I'm going to stay with you, Jabu. You've mentioned a lot of interesting points, and I wanted to, perhaps you can tell us on some of the recommended business, technical, or perhaps even people and governance practices that ideally should be in place for a business if they want to move to, if they're considering moving cloud. What would you say to them? What do they need to do?
There's a couple of things, and I'm glad that we have actually published some of the frameworks that can really help organization to be able to look at all the perspectives that are very important when you embark into the cloud. So you've mentioned on the business side, when you embark on the cloud, it's very important that you get the alignment right? So the alignment between business and IT, map your IT investment to business results. So when we talk to customers, we have this concept of working backwards. What it actually means is for any journey to the cloud, it really needs to start with the business goals. You first have to identify what are the business goals that you want to achieve. And as you map backwards, identify what are the specific business outcomes that you would like to achieve. So by doing that, you're ensuring that whatever KPIs that you're going to at the end put in place really are addressing specific business outcomes. So that is the business alignment. Most importantly, Ivan did also talk about the people. So the people element is very, very important. So when you talk about cloud, it's not really a technical journey. In the main, it's about the people. So you need to ensure that you are able to prioritize to build those cloud-based competencies as well. So you need to be able to ensure that you drive organization readiness. So because it's going to be a change, right? When you do a cloud, you are actually embarking on a large transformation. So it's very important that you take your people along, ensuring that you manage the change management very well. The governance part is, if you're making any type of investment, you really need to be able to ensure how you're going to measure your return on investment on that investment. So the governance layer really talks about how do you manage those cloud investment. Lastly, maybe the technology part. So when you do cloud, how you provision solutions will really be different from how you're currently doing it on your traditional infrastructure. So you want to be able to put mechanisms in place that will allow you to be able to manage your cloud platform once you have migrated. So I'll mention those would be something that you would consider.
Yeah, well, audience, thank you. There you have it. So some of the good recommendations they're given to us by Jabu. Wes, I'm going to come to you. And again, perhaps, staying on the theme of you actually a user of the cloud. And you've already migrated. Tell us a bit more about some of the common drivers. And I want to allude to the point of cost that Jabu touched on when considering migration to the cloud. And is there anything you can tell us? Even within, given you've already migrated, what are the constant cost drivers that you need to manage as a business?
The cost debate is always an interesting one. Probably there's a lot of these mixed messages out there about the cloud being cheaper, but then also saying that don't expect necessarily that in that comparison between infrastructure and then now that the cost of that infrastructure in the cloud, that you're really comparing apples for apples, because I think it is a completely different model that often the comparisons are unfair. So when we looked at what we were setting out to do initially, and if we looked at it as a very basic requirement to go and say, okay, well, we needed this database, for instance, and we went to go see when you start moving beyond the free tiers anyway on AWS and you compare purely for infrastructure, then sometimes you'll find that on paper the costs of the cloud appear to be more, but it's important looking back to Avin's presentation about that iceberg, and what are those hidden costs. And I think a lot of what we factored into our business is the opportunity cost of the requirements to needing to scale, and what is the price that you're putting on things like agility. How quickly can we advance? So I mean, for us, I would say in our journey, we probably could have built our initial infrastructure for less using traditional hosting providers. But if we looked at the longevity that we would have in that infrastructure, it was, really, the comparison was chalk and cheese. And probably the biggest area for us was in the area of big data. So when we started out, I mean, we knew that, particularly around analytical data, around, student utilization and content adoption, things like that, we would generate high volumes of data. And throughout the whole journey, when we started, very basic, MySQL, then we moved to Aurora, and we're probably on our third iteration now of using Redshift, which is, quite a high performance big data platform on AWS. And, the reality is taking all those different steps, because, each was a stepping stone to the next, and was within AWS ecosystem. The cost for us to migrate from, one stage to the next was so much lower. And the cost savings that we had in migration massively made up for, anything extra that we would be paying, I suppose, for infrastructure at each point in time. So I think, it comes back to Jabu's point around the flexibility and agility. Those are the big things. And often an underinvestment isn't really seen, because you're not looking at, where you want to get to. You're very focused on what perhaps your immediate needs are for today.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, you're talking about immediate needs as well. And I'm going to call on Wes. Actually, let me go to Avin quickly. Avin, I want to build this case for costs with you. So, Avin, Wes has spoken, in the context of his business, but how can we kind of overcome some of the other costs that may be anticipated, and what strategies can be implemented once you're actually on the migration journey, already using the cloud?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Let me think about that for a second here. I've got a couple of slides that I want to try and show. Maybe just let me know if that comes. Just one slide, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think it's important to touch on those so we can build a better context around that, I think. And while you do that, just want to remind the audience that we are approaching a point where you're free to ask your questions. Please post them in the chat. We can pull them up from there, and I'll address to our panelists. So any questions that you may have, start thinking about them. If you already have them, put them in the chat and we can address them. As Avin has showed his side, AWS migration cost profile.
Yeah, Brian. So I'm happy that you can see that screen, because that's a really important diagram that's coming up there. What it really shows is that there are three main buckets of costs to migrating to AWS or to any cloud service provider for that matter. And these are the migration costs. Are sort of the first one we talk about. That's the migration bubble. The second part of it, the little block that says TCO, that's our total cost of operation. You used to talk about total cost of ownership, but in the cloud, you really don't own anything. You're just renting it until you need to use the next thing. So it's an operating cost, really. And then the last part of it is the sort of optimization costs, because Wesley would attest to that. You don't just, when you move to cloud, you don't just use one service, you sort of move to the next one and figure out how you're going to lower your costs and how you're going to be better at using the costs. So the migration costs, those are sort of the actual costs of moving your information to cloud. You're going to have a partner or some sort of consulting costs in there. You're going to have consumption costs for provisioning AWS resources for testing purposes. You're going to have some telecommunication costs, that's a given. And you're also going to have the costs associated of running both your environments at the same time for a short period of time while you're busy with cutover and all the other type of things. And these are some of the direct costs that are involved, right? There are also internal costs. Jabu mentioned it around change management and staff training and all the sort of soft issues that go with that. Those are the indirect costs. And when you look at it, you can put it all together, that migration bubble. really the best way to reduce or make that bubble smaller is to take on the outcomes of the cloud adoption framework that I mentioned early on in the slide. The cloud adoption framework, Jabu touched on, that really talks about those 5 or 6 dimensions: business, governance, technical, those type of things. And out of that comes a lot of recommendations on what the business can do to be more cloud ready, to be more prepared for their cloud migration journey. That's really the best way that we've seen in AWS and in our partner network on how you can minimize your migration costs. That migration bubble is always going to be there. It's never going to go away. In any project that you do in the business, there is some cost to optimize. The TCO cost is always going to be there, but depending on how well you design and architecture your environment, that TCO may be lower or higher. And then the jump to newer and better and more sort of value-adding services in the cloud that Wesley mentioned becomes a lot easier, and that migration cost then becomes small. So I think that's the key thing here. There is a migration cost. It is constituted of a lot of different things. But a cloud adoption framework, migration readiness assessment, those type of things can really help reduce that migration bubble cost and prepare the business a lot better and lower risk with migration.
So, Jabu, thanks for that, Avin. Jabu, I'm going to come to you, and all this cost, cost of migration, so you have cloud in place, you've paid the cost to migrate. We can't always just talk about cost without talking about the return on investment when I'm there. How do businesses estimate and subsequently measure, whether the cloud is giving them back the money that they've put into this cost of migration?
Yeah, I think with cloud or with AWS specifically, we're giving you tools that are able to give you a very transparent way of how you're actually managing your costs. So this will really differ from business to business, right, on how they really measure their return on investment. But for us, when we look at how customers are realizing the benefits, it's along 4 dimensions, really. So it's along the cost savings, it's along staff productivity. You need to look at operational resilience. After you have moved to the cloud, we have seen that your operational resilience definitely does change. It was talked about earlier as well. And lastly, your business agility as well. So you can see some of the benefits there are tangible. Some of them are really not tangible. But then it's really up to you to really come up with a specific mechanisms on how you can be able to achieve incremental value. So with cloud, cloud really allows you to be able to measure this value incrementally because you are able to continually do those checks and balances in terms of your strategic goals. You would have defined your strategic business goals already, and later you would have defined the technology enablers. So you need to be able to build KPIs that can help you to measure between your business outcomes with the technology enablers. This is the cloud that you would have implemented. That's when you can really be able to do or to calculate your cloud return on investment. So it will really be along those 4 dimensions that I've mentioned. But because we give you tools that gives you enough data, then you can use the metrics really that drives the real business outcomes. So it will depend from business to businesses. But if you look at those specific dimensions, it will actually make it easier for you to be able to measure your return on investment on cloud.
All right, thanks for that, Jabu. And again, I want to remind the audience, questions time, we're approaching the time where you're free to let us know any thoughts, any questions that you might have. Please pop them in the chat and we will pick them up from there. As you do that, I'm going to call on Wes quickly. Wes, you are in the system. in the system and it's working for you. Tell us a bit more. What have you benefited so far, specifically with the, with being on the cloud or in the cloud? I don't know what term you guys use.
Yeah, I think, there's been a lot of discussions around migration of infrastructure and cost savings. And, I know on Avin's slide, it had that one area of these perhaps intangible benefits. And maybe that's an interesting area to touch on, because I think what's been really important for us and the use of AWS, but also the broader relationship we've had with AWS, I think comes down to that whole thing of, standing on the shoulder of giants. It's a bit of a cliche, but it really is true. Even, we consider ourselves still a startup in culture, but I think, if you're perhaps a larger corporate, but you want to play on an international market now, there's always this sense as you go and do new things that perhaps now you're this, you might have been a big fish in South Africa, but as you go overseas, you realize there's a lot bigger players out there. And what Amazon provides is this, level playing fields. So, some of the areas that have been incredibly beneficial for us that have been touched on that cannot be underestimated is things like security. So, in our business, we're working with a lot of American and European companies, and, they trust us with data and copyrighted learning materials that we need to distribute and secure. And there is a concern around the readiness and the security of businesses in Africa. And I think that is a reality. But the moment we've been able to go and show the infrastructure and that it's underwritten by AWS and using AWS as security infrastructure, that has given a huge amount of confidence in our business because of our association. And then, using some of the tools and even working with third-party penetration testing agencies, all of that has meant that it certainly opened doors that I think would have otherwise been closed to us. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So that's one, I think, really important intangible is what confidence do partners and people overseas have in your business. If people want to enter Africa as a market, they need to know that they are working with a company that has complies with international standards. And a great way to do that, like I said, is to stand on the shoulder of giants. So that's one, I think, really important intangible that doesn't fit on the balance sheet, but is really, really important.
Yeah, thanks for that, Wes, and I really like that. Opening doors, confidence. Those are really big statements that one can benefit from being in the cloud and taking this migration journey. Avin, we're gonna call you up. I see, our finance people often take a while to get warmed up with the questions. This is a good time if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Avin, a question for you. Do I need to have a consulting partner in this journey? And tell us a bit more as well as you do that, the role of MFT. But do I need to have a consulting partner, or it's a case of me just jumping on AWS and I'm ready to migrate?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for that. We spoke earlier on about the cloud adoption framework, and any customer or client or business thinking about moving to cloud should always start off with the cloud adoption framework. And whenever you find any gaps in your skills radius, because the cloud adoption framework presents its results as a spider diagram, one of the things. And if you find there's a skill gap a gap on your skills radius, then I would definitely say that pick a service provider. Here at MFT, what we do is we're focused on our clients' success, and we help our clients take full advantage of all the business benefits that AWS has to offer. I think we're pretty well placed to help our clients at any stage of their cloud adoption journey and to achieve their business goals. Some of the things that I think clients should take when considering an AWS partner are, from your business objectives in the short and medium term, what's your position on agility? What is your position on time to market? What is your position on adopting new technology and cost savings? What are your most important business priorities? What sort of volume of experience and training does your internal team or your internal IT team have on AWS? And is it adequate for what you're trying to do in the business? Another question that businesses normally ask is, do they have a preference or a risk tolerance for in-house or outsourcing arrangements? And I think that's important to understand because you will be dealing with a third party. And how involved do you want to be in continuous IT cloud operations? These are really, really important questions that customers should consider before picking up the phone and calling in an AWS partner. Here at MFT, what we do is we help our customers build successful AWS-based solutions, and we provide business and technical support. We can help design, architect, build, migrate, and manage your business workloads and applications in AWS. There's a lot more on our website, and I don't want to take you there. We're running out of time. But Brian, that in a nutshell is what clients should consider before consulting an AWS partner and what we can offer as MFT.
All right, thank you. And I think we've got a question. Our audience has warmed up. I think Sinalesiwe, she's all the way in the UAE, and she's saying, guys, I'm based in the UAE, servicing customers in South Africa. There are gaps. How can AWS, address some of the gaps between her sitting out in another country, servicing clients in South Africa? I hope I'm getting that question correctly, but I'll send it to Jabu. There is something related to challenges of managing the gap with the customers where she is and where the customers actually reside. Jabu, you want to take that one and share?
I'm going to try. I'm not too sure when they talk about gaps specifically. So Ivan did mention earlier around our global reach because of our global infrastructure. Basically, you are able to deploy cloud solutions wherever you are, right? So she mentions that she's in UAE. She would have realized that we've just announced that we're going to be launching a region soon in the UAE. So that is to allow the people in the UAE to benefit from the low latency of bringing the infrastructure into that region. So basically from the infrastructure point of view, I wouldn't necessarily see any gaps. Maybe Nelisiwe can follow up if this really answers her question on what specifically those gaps are.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you. I think we'll get further clarity on what that specific question might have been. Wes, I'm going to come to you, and as we close off our session, I think we've got perhaps just under 2 minutes to go. What are your recommendations, Wes, to close us off? Recommendations to people like to migrate to the cloud. There are a lot of different cloud service providers. What would you say? What would you say to businesses who wanted to get onto this journey? As quick 2 tips that you can give them.
I think the cloud. It's all about bias to action, which is I think also one of the principles of Amazon as a whole, is to make a start. Pick that first project. It is a journey. That first step is the most difficult, I think, technically and for the team. Just pick something small. There really is nothing stopping you at all, and it's a huge growth opportunity, I think, for the business, but also for the individuals, the tech guys on the team. It's exciting. It's people need to get over this initial apprehension. It's different, but it's not that different. And the same people that got into technology in the first place, they're the ones that are excited to go and do these cool new things. make the start. Best advice I can give.
All right, awesome. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the 2021 business case for the cloud part 1. There will be a part 2 coming out of this. Thank you very much for coming on to this session. We wish you all the best. Hopefully you can join us for the next session, but have a lovely, lovely afternoon. But before you go, just thank my 3 panelists, Wesley Lynch, Snapplify. I've got Jabu Subanyoni from AWS, and Avin Mansookram, the director of MFT, for coming to the session. So what's coming up next? We still have loads lined up for you in our set of webinars. We've got the finance automation promise realized. That'll be coming up next. And then we also have life after LIBOR, which is a new term that I only learned this a couple of days ago, actually. That's an ABSA webinar that's coming up. So stay tuned for these and other invitations. Look out for us on www.cfo.co.za/events for our next up. But with that, thank you and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Brian. Bye.
Thanks, guys.